2 minutes past 12, you're listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Mari Mokwanda. Our panel discussion for today is centered around Youth Day, as Youth Day will be celebrated on or commemorated on the 16th of June, which is Thursday. And there are many challenges that the youth of South Africa face. And I mean, every time this day comes, we always talk about the challenges, and it's like we can't seem to be solving these problems. But anyway, I do have my guests for today who are youth as well. Youth unemployment, rather. Let's talk about this. Yeah, unemployment is one of the major issues affecting South African youth, but it's often talked about only as an economic challenge that has negative consequences for economic growth. It is, however, not the only challenge or issue affecting South Africa's youth. And joining me for this discussion today, I have Michelle Mufaromaka from Climate Alliance, who's a young activist and spreading the word about the climate crisis and related issues among the youth. And I also have Faiza Locke, who has a passion for the youth and women's rights, specifically eradicating gender-based violence. And we also have Wits SRC President Tsheboleng Nkosi Khumalo, who is joining us on the line. Good day to all of you, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. All right. I mean, the challenges, the youth of South Africa are not without challenges. In fact, the youth of the world are not without challenges. According to you, what are some of the challenges facing South African youth that you have come across, or that you have heard of, or that you have seen? Let's start with you, Michelle.
Thanks, Miriam. I think the first, so I'm from the African Climate Alliance. We are a youth-based movement, and we advocate against socio-environmental injustice. So through that work, you come across a lot of different challenges, including youth unemployment, but as well as, poverty and all the intersectionalities that come from not being able to have access to things like education, things like resources, things like opportunities. So I guess the conversation becomes really, really broad in such a context, because youth aren't really able to participate in the economy in the way that they should be able to. And that can be attributed to a lot of different things, including the inability for government to prioritize youth.
Faiza?
Yes, so thank you for the opportunity. So I'm the founder of a movement called Voice of the People movement. So we basically carry out grassroots program and that facilitates skill transfer opportunities and create spaces for young people to engage in network while reimagining a South Africa to get together. And our program are based in Tembisa. And some of the challenges are there are no opportunities for young people to grow and learn and adapt to an ever-changing world. And some of the skills that we teach, that we educate and pass on, are soft skills like mindset shifts and skills like unlearning and relearning unconscious bias. These skills are a huge opportunity for young people to be able to see every challenge as an opportunity for them to learn and grow. So the challenges is that there's a gap to help them to upscale, and there's no platform, especially those who are living in township areas, to learn and grow and support each other. And of course, unemployment, GBV, I mean, the list goes on. There has been and still are so many challenges ahead of us. But one thing that I have to say is that there's still a lot of hope in young people. So we're very
Definitely.
positive about the future.
I have Tsheboleng Nkosi on the line, who is the president of Wits, the SRC rather. And Tsheboleng Nkosi, from your side, what have you seen as some of the challenges facing South African youth?
Thank you for having us. So the issues are many, as my colleagues here have stated it. But I think the most important things that stretch from back as in 1976, with the youth that actually started fighting these struggles we're facing. One, you can see the gap that exists between private schools and public schools. And that's where majority of our problems start from. Children that attend private schools are offered good opportunities. They are offered almost everything to assist them to succeed in life. Then when you look at government schools, the gap is too huge. There isn't enough services. Even the teachers that are there do not have the right motto in mind. Also, the spaces are not even safe for teachers to fully apply themselves. So the gap that exists in private schools and public schools must be closed. Secondly, the issue of private hospitals. It has collapsed majority of state institutions. We can speak about your Maragwana, we can speak about your Charlotte Maxere, the hospitals that were known as the best in the world. But today, they cannot properly cater for citizens because there's been a division of class that exists and that has been perpetuated by the government. So the gap that exists between hospitals must be closed. And we must be like your China. We must be like your Singapore, where all citizens, regardless of their status, can simply attend in same schools, can simply attend in same hospitals. But we come to the issue of jobs. And then I think the problem is that we keep on saying government, while we see that the government we have doesn't have the capacity to create jobs. So what is the alternative solution? We need to go into industrialization. We have the minerals, we have the land, we have the labor force. Why is it that minerals cannot be refined within the country? During the looting that was happening across the country, we saw at the harbor in KZN, when people started looting the containers, we saw simple things such as kitchen utilities, simple things such as pampers for, baby diapers for children. We saw that all these things are shipped from other countries, which didn't make sense because it means as a country, after almost 27 years of democracy, as a country, we can't manufacture spoons. That's what it means. We can't manufacture simple things. We can't manufacture books and all these things. And even if you have these small businesses that are functioning within the country, they do not receive a lot of support because government has already signed deals with these foreign countries to actually buy majority of their goods. In that way, to keep the relations that don't assist the people in the country. So what we have, if you look into the years of Thabo Mbeki, you had the gear where there was a focus on micro economic policies that were meant to develop and actually increase budget for local economies. Then we moved to the National Development Plan. So far, the government has not even followed the National Development Plan. The policies are there, they are good, but there is no implementation, which then brings us to the role of the youth. The difference between the role of the youth in 1976 and now, in 1976, our parents were actively involved in ensuring that apartheid ends, in ensuring that children are treated fairly in schools. But the youth of today simply just vote for people and let them be at the offices. And hence you are seeing this incompetence and actually the failure of government to implement the policies that they would have promised people during the election time. Thank you.
All right, Tebile Nkosi, you have said a mouthful there. Wow. Now, young people are labeled as ticking time bombs or bad citizens who need to be grateful to their elders. Do such rhetorics fail to recognize youth as legitimate stakeholders and decision makers who should be involved in policy processes? I do have Irfan Mangera, the Youth Activism Program Manager at the Ahmad Kathrada Foundation, also joining us. Irfan, from what you've just heard from Tebelen Kosi and what I've just asked, what are your thoughts regarding this year? Do such rhetorics fail to recognize the youth as legitimate stakeholders and decision makers?
Thank you. Thank you so much to Salam Media and to you, Mariam, for hosting us. We do think so. And I think building on what the previous speaker has mentioned, young people for a long time have been left out from really engaging in real systemic change. And when I mean left out, I don't just mean like we don't want to participate. It's very clear that we have the capacity to lead. We have, in fact, this Youth Day Parade for Justice and Change that we are convening with a whole range of different partners showcases the length and breadth of what young people in this country are doing. From the kind of community work dealing with drugs and rehab to sports to even initiatives that deal with food relief from agriculture and so on, climate change. So we have the capacity to lead. I think one of the challenges we're facing is that society and by and large, specifically the adults in the room, have not questioned their bias as to why they would not support a young person because it's really has become just a virtue of because they're young they can't lead. There's no substance to that argument around what skills young people have, what knowledge they have, what actual experience they have, because many young people I'm aware of have done phenomenal work, have served on boards, have created businesses and so on. So really I think it's also a question that we must throw to society. And in fact, on Salam Media, Tessa Dooms was speaking about this a couple of weeks ago on what society's role is in giving more young people space to lead and giving them the opportunities to do so with by backing them. I think there's rhetoric on tokenism, youth being used as tokens. It's very clear within not just the governing party, but all political parties that young people are relegated to youth structures alone. I think here the challenge must be we have to challenge this because if we look back at history, young people who are leading in the 70s, in the 80s, they were in their 20s. They were often school-going kids who were engaged in protest action. So what we are saying is that if they themselves were leading at such a young age, why is it that they are holding on to power and gatekeeping those positions where there are many more capable young people who should rightfully be so put into executive leadership and so on. We are the majority in this country as young people, in fact, in the continent, and yet we still don't have equal representation in that regard with young people. And this Youth Day Parade for Justice and Change will just showcase and highlight how young people are coming together, have the capacity to lead, and are calling on, rightfully so, government to deliver on its mandate. Our previous speaker here, the Zionist Alliance president of the SRC, mentioned that government it doesn't have the capacity to lead or to create jobs, for example. We agree but also disagree because government must not equally in that is saying that government failed to implement. That's the problem. We need a government that's gets driven by care, that's compassion, that's people centered. And I think our politics today just has removed themselves, or rather politicians themselves have removed themselves from the actual issues on the ground. If we are to say a branch of an organization is in good standing, or any kind of political party working in a ward, how do we measure their success by ensuring that there's water, there's clean and safe water to drink, There's enough capacity for entrepreneurs to find support, and that kind of approach really takes away from this political elite that we've seen growing since democracy, and we need to do away with those things because it really it allows a fertile breeding ground for more young people to be more distrustful in government when they see this happening, when they see a ward councillor, for example, um, getting richer and managing some tender processes on who must benefit rather than the benefit of the whole community. And when you see this type of actions, you lose trust and faith in a system, and that's why you also equally see less and less young people at the voting polls because they just don't think um, there's hope left in political systems and institutions. So I think that it's multi-layered. When we speak on these issues, it is definitely multi-layered.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are a lot of issues that need to be discussed and outlined. We do have a comment here from Leah Lynette Robbery, who says, Assalamu alaikum, walaikum salam. We live in, the world we live in is not conducive to a secure, safe, and happy environment to live in. The system that currently exists, capitalism, is clearly not sufficient for all. And that's no one's fault, as we all have accepted the status quo for generation. Einstein says insanity is when you keep doing the same things over and over, expecting a different result. Young people have a different perspective to old people because they are way more integrated than old people whose, well, it seems to be incomplete there. But she looks forward to innovative ideas from fresh young minds who are committed to making this life a beautiful life, I must say, for future generations. Thank you for your comment, Leah. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'd like to continue the discussion and talk about the youth of 76. And well, it is a youth day because of the youth of 76. But let us take a quick break and we will discuss that when we return.
As some look forward to the blessings and beauty of winter, the less fortunate in South Africa are preparing for the harsh realities that this season may bring. Africa Muslims agencies on the ground distributing blankets, clothing, and other essentials to thousands across the country. Sponsor a winter warmth pack for 280 rands. Call Africa Muslims Agency now on 011 834 8685. Spread warmth this winter with Africa Muslims Agency.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying, or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
Give charity without delay, for it stands in the way of calamities. For child-headed households in Bloemendal in the Eastern Cape, the daily diet consists of white bread and a carton of cheap juice or sugar water, known locally as the poppy water diet. Make a difference to that one child or family. The Al-Fida Foundation has over the past 13 years worked on the ground and gathered the largest database in the Eastern Cape region of Muslim Zakah recipients. Phone our offices at 041 484 1288 or visit our website at www.alfida.co.za. The Al-Fida Foundation, your social investment partner in the Eastern Cape.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media, your humanitarian broadcaster.
12:22, you are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media. the youth of South Africa face many challenges, and they are not limited to just education and unemployment. And I'm sure you have been listening to what my guests have had to say. And let's go back to the youth of 1976. Clearly, they played a role in the education system back then, which has kind of helped us today, with our education system. So, can they be responsible for the issues that are faced by today's youth? And Irfan made a point earlier saying that they were young when they were activists. Uh, uh, um, they were fighting for a good cause at their young ages. So why are they not offering the youth of South Africa today the same opportunity? Because I mean, they are the ones who are currently sitting in power. Let me bring in the ladies. Let's start with Michelle. Michelle has been quiet for a while because the guys have had a lot to say. But Michelle, okay, can the youth be responsible? The youth of 76, can they be responsible for the issues that today's youth are facing?
I think it sort of becomes a bit of a different conversation when we start referring to them as the youth of 76. I think it's the current sitting adults who are responsible for the situation that we're in now, for many different reasons. And I think we've heard a lot of them. Their inability to apply policies and other such things, and really just make sure that people are prioritized, right? Young people are prioritized. So one thing that I would then focus on is like currently, so I work predominantly in the environmental space. That's your climate change and other environmental issues, which also then touches on housing, poverty, and all of the other layers of the issues that are faced by young people. And if you just focus on climate change for a minute, you find that currently what we're saying is that the youth of 76, which are our current sitting leaders, they seem to not be taking, climate change as a serious threat. I feel like there is a lot of hesitance to accept that doom is looming. I mean, if you look at the KZN floods recently, which have washed away so many homes, so many livelihoods, people have lost lives, people don't know where to begin because of just how devastating it was. And then you look at the fact that younger people, the youth of today, have been sounding alarms on the issues pertaining to climate change and have been essentially ignored. And it's only now that we're seeing a little bit of change or a change of heart from the youth of 76 to actually say, hang on, there is a problem and the problem is climate change. And now how do we, deal with it? And even then, the involvement of the current leaders is not to our satisfaction. I don't think that they realize how much of a threat this is, and that might be because they might not necessarily feel the harms of it. Because by the time climate change really takes the world by storm, those people will be dead, and that is the truth. And so I guess what I'm saying is, yes, they are to blame for our current situation, but young people are doing a lot. Today's young people are doing a lot to really just take back power. For instance, at the African Climate Alliance, we are currently running a cancel call campaign. We're taking the government to court for them to not include any new coal in our power plans, in our energy future, right? And the government, as you would expect, is opposing that. The youth of 76 are opposing the fact that we need to secure the future for young people. So, I mean, that in itself sends a message to say, well, young people from back then are to blame for our current situation. But it's not to say that youth of today aren't doing much. I mean, that in itself shows the strength in today's youth to be able to go against government in court. And yeah.
I mean, if they were able to go against government, why shouldn't today's youth go against them? I mean, it's only fair, and they're supposed to be learning from the past, and to say that, okay, if this could happen back then, if we were able to do that, then today's youth are able to do much more. Faiza, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so of course the government is in power right now and they have the decision-making power to create change. And aren't any intention from their side to create change. While intention is not enough, there aren't any actionable steps to create change. But this is a collective failure on our side. Our collective failure to meet these challenges year after year, decade after decade has led us to this breaking point. And this is why the Youth Parade is so important, is because we are coming together to apply pressure and consistently applying pressure outside of June 16, because our commitment is to do this, to hold each other accountable every 16th of a month, every month, to hold each other accountable, to start organizing with each other to create the change we want to see. Because the future we want to create requires us to use our imagine and to be open to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And young people are open to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And this is something that we can start focusing on in order to create the world we want to see. Because the future is what we do, what we did, and what we decided, and what others decided for us. The future connects to the past, and the past connects to the present. Everything touches and influences everything else. And we are all, the pandemic has shown us that we are all interconnected with each other. And so, you know, I know that there are future counselors that are listening in right now, future presidents listening in right now, because we're all interconnected with each other. And our collective, we need to do this collectively in order to, create the change we want to see, instead of waiting for a decision made differently by the government.
True. And we actually do have a president with us, the SRC president for WITS. Clebo, what is your thoughts on this year? Is the youth of 76 to be blamed for what, or the issues or challenges that the youth of today are facing?
I think it's important to take it back a little bit.
Yeah.
So if you look into the role they played at that time, they were formidable. They were resolute on what they wanted, on forms and policies that they were pushing, on the type of South Africa that they wanted to see. And we saw it happening in 1994 when the first democratic government was elected. But then after that, problems started. They forgot the very first thing that made them choose to fight. They forgot their colleagues that died along them in the struggle. Today, you cannot even look at them in the face and say, these are the people that once stood for something great. Maybe perhaps it is true that some revolutionaries must not lead in government, because the moment they enter into those spaces, they sell out. They forget the very simple policies of free education, accessible healthcare systems that must be afforded to each and everyone. And today, part of our troubles, majority, 50% of our troubles are because of the so-called youth of 1976 that fought against the apartheid government. So yes, in the past they stood for something, but currently when we look, they have reached a ceiling. Their families are not even in the country, majority of them. They are studying in China, studying in the United States. They have assets in other countries, Singapore and all of them. Meaning there is no intention of even staying in the country, but the only intention they have currently is to make as much money as possible, so that when shit hits the fan, they can simply leave, go abroad, live nicely with their families, and leave this country languishing. Like my previous colleagues have stated, we can already see that we are on a ticking time bomb. PRASA is not operating. Criminals are cutting railway lines like nobody before. We are now even having the issues of Eskom cables being cut. These are things we never used to have These are signs of a failing state. If the youth of today, if us as youth today, we do not stand up for ourselves, we fight like they fought in the back in the days, in the next coming 10 years, we will be in serious trouble. We will be having your civil wars over political parties, over ethnic lines, over nationality, on whether someone is a foreigner or they are from South Africa. So currently, they are the ones that are frustrating almost everything. They stand against anything that is progress. They are not assisting in anything. It's really a few people that you can even point out that are sort of trying to assist. But even in that, they are doing the bare minimum, because we must not praise you for fulfilling your office duties. And what we must praise you for is the ability to take the policies and take the opinions of the people on the ground and be able to implement them from the government level. But partially, as the youth, we are to blame, because we put people in positions, then we leave them like that. Then after 5 years, you hear that a specific amount of money has disappeared, so forth and so forth. We are not following up. A majority of the youth are not voting. Majority of the youth are not participating in either starting their own organizations. Even those that are starting businesses, they are not fully supported. It's difficult to even establish yourselves as a black person in the country or a young person within the country. So yes, the youth of 1976 is to blame for the problems we have. But partially, as the youth of today, we must love our country. We must love South Africa. It has given us so much. The moment we love our country, we'll be willing to fight for it. We'll be willing to make the right decisions. We'll be willing to be always involved in whatever changes or reforms that the government is proposing. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I think at this point, so many people have already given up and have thrown in the towel. They've given up on the ruling parties and any other political parties. Basically, they've given up on the youth of 76. They see no hope. And even trying to do things for the country, to uplift the country, it seems like they're hitting a brick wall, and it's not going anywhere, and they are not going anywhere. The time is not on our side. Irfan, can you tell us quickly about the Youth Day Parade that will be taking place on Thursday, inshallah?
Shukran. Yes, I just want to also for a minute say that we must be very cautious when we speak of youth of 1976 in a very generalized term, because they were people who sacrificed their lives for us and who still today are activists in many different fields. Those that did go into positions of power are those we must call to account for their failures on delivering and or not. The Youth Day Parade for Justice and Change will be a mass mobilization of youth. We have endorsements from just under 100 organizations, youth-led and civil society-based, sports, cultural, other advocacy groups, law groups, and so on, who will be marching to the union buildings to deliver a memorandum to the president's office, which is under the presidency. In doing so, we hope to start highlighting the main issues of youth, but equally make a call to action to young people today to showcase and create a new platform in which we can organize under that is not affiliated to any political party. Youth in this formation, they come from different backgrounds. In fact, some of them are from across different political parties, but they're there as young people and they're there representing the organizations that are doing work on the ground. It is a historic moment for us. We do think that post the 1980s, when young people were organizing, like the Soweto Students Organization in Lenasia, you had the Lens Youth League that Salam Media covered last week on their book launch. You had many of these youth formations towards the 80s when young people took forward the struggle while many leaders were imprisoned or in exile or underground. And I think today we come from many of us, in fact, most of us are born into democracy. we have a new set of issues and problems, and we think that the only way we're going to be able to deal with them effectively is by collective action, deliberations, engagements, dialogue, but also collective action. I think we must move away from just this passive approach to activism and sharing on like tweets and so on alone. I think those are important tools, but we really must show face on the ground and be present if we want to see changes happening. In saying this, I think this is a new moment of sparking hope and courage, and that's ultimately what this parade aims to do, is to showcase the phenomenal work being done, show that there is hope still left and it's worth fighting for and it's worth believing in. And that's a call out not just to young people, but to all of society who believes in this and who wants to support such an initiative to get through to us and partner with us, and we can then take the discussions forward from there. But we will be leaving from Loftus Versfeld Stadium at 9 a.m., marching to the Union buildings, where we'd have our solidarity program at the lawns. And we encourage everyone to join us there. Thank you so much.
All right, so the Youth Day Parade will be taking place this Thursday, the 16th of June, 2022, which is Youth Day. I'd like to thank all of you for taking time out to participate in this discussion today, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Right, that was the panel discussion on Youth Day. What are the issues facing the youth of South Africa, and is the youth of 1976 to blame for the problems that the current youth are facing at the moment? With guests Irfan Mangera, Michelle Mufaro Maka, Faiza Locke, and Tebolen Kosi Kumalo. It is 12:39. You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media. Stay with us.